13,000 store closures in a single year, nearly 170,000 jobs lost, 6,000 bank branches shut since 2015. Everyone still says they love the British High Street, yet it is collapsing in plain sight. But this isn't one catastrophe. It's an entire system, one that once bound together shopping, banking, errands, and daily life, being dismantled piece by piece. And it started long before anyone noticed. For generations, the High Street was the stage on which British daily life played out. It was never just a shopping strip. Here, a single walk could fold together errands, lunch, banking, a haircut, and a chat with a neighbour. The High Street pulled in everyone, young and old, weekday workers and Saturday browsers, because it bundled so many needs into one shared space. At the heart of this system stood the anchor retailers: Woolworths, BHS, Debenhams, Marks and Spencer, WH Smith, Boots, and the banks. These were more than familiar names. They acted as magnets, drawing steady crowds and giving the street a sense of permanence. Anchor retailers, in town centre planning, are the big chains that attract footfall and keep the whole street busy. Around them, independent shops, cafe, post offices, and local services found a reliable flow of customers. Transport routes, bus stops, tram lines, train stations, all pointed towards the High Street, making it the natural destination for a day's routine. For many, the High Street was woven into the week as a habit, not a luxury. You could pick up school uniforms, pay a bill, grab a sandwich, and still have time for a chat at the bank counter. The rhythm of these errands and encounters built a kind of emotional familiarity. It's what made the High Street feel like a public living room, where strangers became regulars and the ordinary moments of life were shared. That sense of belonging is why the loss feels so personal, even as the changes unfold gradually, one closure or empty unit at a time. Woolworth's collapse in December 2008 sent a shockwave through hundreds of British towns. All 807 stores closed their doors within days, leaving 27,000 people suddenly out of work. For many, it was the first time in living memory that a mainstay of the High Street simply vanished. The empty units didn't just signal the loss of a retailer, they left a physical and social gap that no quick replacement could fill. Then came BHS. In 2016, after months of financial turmoil, the company entered administration. Its 164 stores, once a fixture in city centres and market towns, were liquidated, putting around 11,000 jobs at risk. The closures were public and drawn out, with closing down signs lingering in windows for weeks. Each shuttered store was a reminder that the High Street's centre of gravity was slipping away. Debenhams followed, battered by years of debt and the final blow of the 2020 lockdowns. The brand filed for protection, and by May 2021, every one of its UK stores had closed. That meant up to 12,000 more jobs gone, and another anchor gone from the heart of the High Street. These were not isolated company failures. Each was the removal of a traffic generator that had propped up dozens of nearby businesses. After a department store closure, footfall in the surrounding area dropped by an average of 11.8% in the first year. Cafes, newsagents, and independent shops all felt the knock-on effect. The pattern repeated across the country. When the anchors fell, the rest of the street grew quieter, emptier, and more fragile. By 2024, the Centre for Retail Research recorded 13,479 store closures and 169,395 retail jobs lost in a single year. The scale of contraction had become national, not local, a sign that the High Street's old system was unravelling, one anchor at a time. A decade ago, most shopping in Britain still meant a trip into town. But as the 2010s wore on, that habit began to unravel. The Office for National Statistics recorded internet sales at just 3.4% of all retail spending in 2007, a sliver of the market. By 2019, that share had climbed to 19.2%. 2 years later, in 2021, it surged to 30.7%. Even after the initial pandemic surge faded, online sales settled at 27.3% in April 2026, still nearly 8 times higher than in 2007. The pandemic didn't invent online shopping, but it did fast-forward the shift. When lockdowns forced shops to close, people who had always preferred the high street found themselves ordering groceries, clothes, and electronics from their living rooms. Many of those new habits stuck. For the first time, convenience became the default. The old routine, bundling errands, meeting friends, visiting the bank, lost its grip as more people discovered they could buy almost anything with a few taps on a phone. The change wasn't just about technology, it was about expectation. With next-day delivery and click and collect, the need to plan a trip into town faded for millions. The high street's role as a practical hub for everyday life began to shrink. As the habit of visiting in person eroded, so did the steady demand that once kept shops, cafes, and services busy. The numbers show it. As online sales rose, the footfall that anchored high streets dropped, leaving physical shops to compete on ground that was shifting beneath their feet. Inside every high street shop, the pressure is relentless. Even as footfall falls, the bills keep coming. Business rates, rent, wages, energy, insurance, stock, and a growing risk of theft. Each one eats into margins that are already thin. For years, government relief softened the blow. In 2024 and 2025, retail, hospitality, and leisure businesses received a 75% discount on their business rates, helping many stay afloat. But for the 2025 to 2026 financial year, that support is being cut to 40%. For many shop owners, that means their rates bill will nearly double overnight, just as demand remains weak. The debate over how to fund high street recovery has put large stores in the spotlight. Around 4,000 of the biggest retail premises, those with a rateable value over £500,000, are facing a proposed surtax. The idea is to raise money for small business relief by charging more to anchors and superstores. But the British Retail Consortium warns that this could push up to 100,000 jobs onto the chopping block. The risk is not just to the big chains. When an anchor struggles or closes, the ripple hits every nearby cafe, newsagent, and independent shop. These cost pressures aren't spread evenly. The economics of retail space have shifted. Retail warehouses, often on the edge of town, serving as click-and-collect hubs or logistics bases, have a vacancy rate of just 6%. Shopping centre units, by contrast, are nearly 3 times as likely to stand empty, with a vacancy rate of 16.9%. High street units fall somewhere in between, but the gap reveals a deeper problem. Not all physical shops are weighed down by the same burdens, and not all formats can adapt as quickly. For many high street retailers, the squeeze is not a passing storm. It's a structural bind, tightening year by year. The high street's strength was never just its shops. It worked because it bundled so many errands into one trip: banking, posting a parcel, picking up a prescription, sorting travel, or meeting an estate agent. These routine stops were quiet anchors, each one giving people a reason to come into town, even when they didn't plan to shop. But since 2015, more than 6,000 bank branches have closed across the UK, erasing one of the last dependable draws. Link, the cash network, now recommends 276 banking hubs by 2026 as a way to fill the gap. But these offer only a fraction of the counter services and advice that full branches once provided. As banks, post offices, and other everyday services disappear, the street becomes less essential. The old habit, doing everything in one place, breaks down, and the high street becomes optional rather than a part of daily life. Across the UK, the fate of the high street now splits sharply from place to place. Central London, Cambridge, Edinburgh, and York maintain vacancy rates as low as 5 to 7%, while towns like Newport, Bradford, and Blackpool face rates more than double that, often above 17%. City centres, though they cover just 0.1% of the country's land, generate over 9% of all face-to-face retail spending. The difference lies in adaptation. The strongest high streets have moved beyond the old retail-only formula. Shops share space with homes, food halls, health clinics, co-working offices, and cultural venues. Councils and planners support flexible leases and mixed-use redevelopment, not to preserve nostalgia, but to rebuild practical reasons for people to come. Where this shift happens, footfall holds up. Where it doesn't, empty units multiply, and the street becomes little more than a memory. Affection alone cannot sustain the old model. Nostalgia alone can't rebuild what habits, services, and economics have unraveled. Today, city centres pivot while fragile towns face empty windows. The high street isn't dying from lost affection, it's vanishing because the reasons to gather have splintered. The question now, what new purpose can bring us back?